Hello and welcome to the Route 1 show. I'm Stephen Browne and we're taking a look at all things Leeds United. I'm delighted to say joining me as ever is Jayson Booker. Jason, how are we doing, mate?
Very well, my friend. Very well. Gearing up for the weekend.
Have we got that hope and optimism coming back, have we?
It's coming day by day, hour by hour.
Dangerous, isn't it?
I make the vital mistake of watching so much content on YouTube with regards to Leeds. My opinions just get pulled and pushed all over the place. So an hour of listening to the other Brownie on Connor's show makes me think, maybe we can. Yeah, maybe it's going to be all right. And then I start talking to myself about it. So, yeah, I'm hopeful. Hopefully.
Yeah, I love it. I know. Do you know, I'm exactly the same way. I go to all the other content creators, Connor, watching the debrief, KJ. I mean, just, do you know what, though? I love it because the analysis and the discussion around it, it is like therapy sessions. It's like dipping your toes in little therapy sessions just to kind of, get a rounded view of it. And I've got to say, Jason, I feel a bit brighter about the situation going towards the weekend. I think I've kind of thought about it. I've tried to think about it less, and that's helped a little bit. But looking back now, taking everything into consideration, a couple of good results for Leeds the other night with Palace losing and Southampton losing. Where's your head at now then? Are you thinking actually last weekend was okay? I know Everton won, but are we okay? And actually, can we get out of this thing?
We said the word isolation so many bloody times. Like the result was a good result. Brighton are a really good side. They are a really, really good side. I didn't watch all the game yesterday, but I heard that Palace had massive parts of the game.
Yeah.
So I mean, at the end of the day, we came away from that game with a point. So we have to take it as a positive, don't we? We have to. I'm not saying that I'm feeling that much more optimistic than I was last weekend. Like I said, watching some of the content, Brownie, like I said, the other Brownie puts it into a really good perspective in that everybody down there is struggling. Yeah. Everybody is feeling the same way. And under Gracia, we've actually taken as many points as everybody else in that bottom nine. Because we've gone backwards, it feels bad. And when you think about it, we've lost to Chelsea away. If you take away the fact that they were struggling, it's, that's a result that we would expect. They're still a fantastic side. They've still got, killers, players that are going to really hurt you. And then we've gone and got 4 points against Southampton and Brighton. If we'd have taken it, if we'd have been offered that at the beginning, we'd have probably taken it. So it's really difficult. I don't know where my head's at. I'm a bit like you. I'm just trying to kind of isolate myself from it. Yeah, like ignore it a little bit, take an attitude of it. If the worst comes to the worst, we'll deal with that then. I mean, we're going to say it again. Saturday is just a must win. It's just a must win for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Michael Browne, good evening, guys. Good evening, Michael. Thank you very much for watching, mate. Let us know what your thoughts are ahead of that Wolves game as well. Yeah, I mean, it's a great point that the other Brownie made. And I think if you look at the points per game, if you carry on this trend of, 4 out of 9, I think we end up on about 39 points. I think Phil had worked that out as, which hopefully you think would be enough to turn it around. And I think, it's like we said, and actually, at the time, not being at the game, you thought the crowd were getting a little impatient with the non-pressing style. But I've heard actually that was more directed to Brighton, passing it around at the back.
I heard a little bit. I don't know about that though.
I know what you mean, but I thought, does that temper it a little bit? Does that make you think actually? Because there were no way we could go gung ho against a quality team like that.
I agree.
Looking back at the highlights of it, and some of their passing and movement is just out of this world. I mean, it's top level stuff, and I think we've taken a point against them. There was a bit of doom and gloom on things that I heard, and I felt really kind of a bit, negative about it afterwards. But that's a damn good point against a good team.
The way that we set up weren't a problem for me.
No,
that was the right way to go about it. What really worried me coming out of Saturday's game was some of the individual performances, and the facts are that we should have lost that game quite comfortably, really. Yeah. Brighton should have scored 4 or 5, maybe even 6. That's where my frustration and my kind of negativity came from out of the game. But it's, again, this argument of points over performances. It's finding that balance of should that have resulted in a point at the weekend? that's where my difficulties come from. But yeah, I mean, the facts are we did come away with a point. It doesn't matter. At the end of the season, we won't look back if we finish 1 point clear and go, "Oh, we didn't deserve that point. We should have gone down." Like, it don't work like that. So we got a point.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Breaking news though from this week, and I think all Leeds fans went, is Tyler Adams. Yeah, I mean, Tyler Adams hamstring injury is going to be out. I think, the international break. He's not going to be playing in that, and then I don't know what the prognosis is for a return. He's been arguably the player of the season so far. I've said on previous streams that I think perhaps under Gracia he's not quite been the Tyler that we saw maybe under Marsh. It does make me worry about who the destroyer is going to be and how that is going to work for Leeds. I mean, we've privately messaged, a little bit about this as well. How big of a blow is it to lose Adams at this stage, and how do Leeds cope with that in your opinion, Jason?
Let's not pretend that it's not a massive loss. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
It is a huge loss under Gracia or under Marsh. Like, the attributes that he brings are always going to be missed. And I think especially in the away games, especially against teams like Wolves, who are technically very good in the centre of the pitch, because I think they've got some good players, mate. I'm surprised Wolves are even in and around a relegation battle this year, really. I think he will be missed. However, I don't think he's the player that we would miss the most. So, the facts are is that you're going to suffer injuries. It's impossible in a season you're going to avoid injuries. So, we unfortunately, we've just had a couple come back. It looks like we've got a full, roster. And and now we've not. We've lost one. But I would much prefer to be without Adams than I would Verba, as an example. Not having Nonto in and around the squad, I think he would be a bigger miss. There ain't many more, I will say that, but I don't think, like if we'd have lost Rafinha last year, that would have been a catastrophe. You can handle this. A little bit like when we lost Calvin. You could handle losing Calvin a lot more than you could have done losing Rafinha. So that's where I'm at. Like, I'm gutted, but it's a shame. But I do see it as a potential to kind of unlock maybe that midfield. Rocker and McKennie might have to now, be set up to work in a certain way. Maybe even he does go with a 3 in there and he puts somebody else in there. Brendan Aronson maybe can be utilised more centrally at the tip of a 3. I don't know. I don't know exactly how. That's what Gracia is paid for, but I'm not looking at it as all doom and gloom. And fingers crossed it'll only be one game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Michael, from what I understand from Adam's hamstring injury, that it's not a tear, it's more of a strain. So hopefully the prognosis isn't too bad.
Thank you, Michael. Weeks.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. That's good. Because one thing I'm concerned about in that central midfield, well, what I will say before I go on to that point is that I'm glad we've got a manager who I feel will at least tweak the situation. It's not going to be like when it was under Bielsa or Marsh, where you've got key players who make that system work. Okay, they're injured, but we'll just try and do it regardless.
In there, or
it feels like at least he should have a plan to be able to deal with that, which I think is a big positive. But the other issue is, I mean, you look at that central midfield, and you've got 3 recognised central midfielders in that entire squad. You've got Adams, Rocker, and McKennie. I'm talking about guys right bang in the middle, maybe defensively a little bit higher up, and it just boggles the mind, doesn't it, how understaffed we are in that part of the field and how that has been allowed to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the options in midfield have been a problem for as long as Bielsa's been here. Sorry. From the point of Bielsa starting to now. No, he's still here. We've always had that problem. There were running joke, wasn't it, that we were not recruited a centre midfielder since purchasing Adam Forshaw. And then obviously we did in the summer. But yeah, it's still a hugely understaffed area of the pitch, and we are relying again on kids if we have any issues to Rocker or McKennie in that area, or we want to go with the 3. I mean, you have to, in my opinion, have 4 or 5 experienced, readily available centre midfielders. And I mean, we are still in a position where we have got Forshaw in the squad, which shouldn't be here, but he's still part of the squad. Stuart Dallas is obviously being injured. over a year. So again, the recruitment comes into question, and we have to plug them gaps, even if it's short term. Again, we spoke the other night about more experienced players that we potentially could have brought in on a year's deal or something like that. That should have. Stuart Dallas was never going to be available this year. I said it from the second he did that injury, we'd be looking at seeing in 18 months because you break the top of your leg. Like, it's such an unnatural injury to rehabilitate from. We'll be lucky to ever see him achieve Premier League levels ever again. Yeah. So we can't have been relying on him, and then you can't rely on Adam Forshaw either.
No. It does boggle my mind. And I think when you look at certain other deals, I even look at like Garner going to Everton or Lewis O'Brien going to Nottingham Forest. I know that not particularly worked out, but it's just fleshing those numbers out, isn't it? In
Lewis O'Brien would be perfect. Lewis O'Brien would have been perfect in our squad. He'd have played, out of the 27 games this season, he'd have probably made 15 starts. I don't know, a bunch from the bench, maybe not appeared in all the games, something 10 or 15 starts, something like that, where, Tyler needed a rest, or he plays alongside Tyler, or he plays in the 3. There'd have been loads of options for Lewis O'Brien. He'd have easily got as many appearances of fully fit Adam Forshaw or Stuart Dallas.
Yeah.
So it'd have been put £5 million. I mean, we were banging on about him last January. So, for me, it would have been a perfect signing. I mean, maybe we should have gone more out for a Lavia or... a lot of people are comparing JB to Lavia. They're nothing alike, in my opinion. The levels of being ready for Premier League first team football are miles apart. So, yeah.
What do you make of that call? Because I know that is a thing that's popping up, because JB is an exciting prospect, and we've seen little glimpses where you think, "Oof, yeah, that's good." But I mean, in these type of situations, you always get that clamour, don't you? For the
it drives me mad, mate. You're setting me up here. It drives me mad. It annoys me. It's one of my biggest pet peeves of football fans is that it seems to be the default that people go to when there's a problem. So, you're out of form, bang a kid in. Like, just bang Archie Gray in, bang McCarron in, bang Nolan Kenny. I bring out these names all the time because people have done it. I remember people doing it with Ryan Edmondson when Bamford was struggling. Like, get a grip, right? And I know that they might impress at under 23 level, but they're impressing against other under 23 players that are not also ready for first team Premier League football. It's such a massive, massive step up. That's why you don't see many 18, 19, 20-year-olds playing first team Premier League football regularly. And then especially, it's different putting a Willie Gnonto in there who clearly is ready than it is throwing somebody that isn't ready in there when you desperately need them. That's just it's not smart at all. So if you have an experienced option, you take the experienced option, even if they're out of form, because all you're going to do is suffer in the game itself, and that player is then just going to be demoralized. It can massively hamper a young player's progression.
Yeah, I mean, you even look at someone like Aronson, who's a couple of years older, and a few bad games, and then how that even affects. I mean, you even look at Jack Harrison, who's mid-20s, and he's still confidence issues, going forward. I mean, I know you've said, previously, it's Gracia's, he's paid the big money to solve these issues, but I wonder if he's tempted to possibly go 5 at the back or something, or
maybe
mix it up a little bit.
Just on the kid thing, it happened with Lewis Bate last year. Yeah. And I rate Lewis Bate. I think, remember being a really good League One footballer, professional footballer, is still hella level. It's still a hell of a footballer. So, if he goes on to only play League One Championship level, that is still super impressive. So he's doing well at League One this season. But we were desperate last year. He had a couple of flashy moments, looked all right. We put him in against Chelsea and he got swallowed up. Yeah. He was so out of his depth. And at that point, the club knew that he weren't ready to play Premier League football, and he got loaned out to League One. So is that what we want now? Like, it's just not. But yeah, you're right. 5 at the back is definitely a potential. We've got the bodies to do that. And maybe go 5-4-1 or 5-3-2, something along them lines. Maybe try Gnonto alongside Pat or Rodrigo or something like that. I just don't see it because I think he's going to stick with Jack. And I think for Jack to play, he has to play wide. I think Gracia's picked up on that. So I just think with the things that Gracia has said and then the the goal and the assist, even though his performance was poor, I still think he'll start at the weekend. So I think we'll see something similar.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, Michael, if Leeds survive this season, need to bring in at least 2 mobile, quick, 2-footed strikers, 2 ball-playing midfielders as well. I mean, me and Jason talked about this at the weekend and just kind of getting a bit ahead of ourselves, but it's hard not to when we're in the position.
Yeah.
But if Leeds stay up, what kind of rebuild needs to go on? I mean, it's fascinating because I think after the weekend and seeing us in 19th, we were thinking, blimey, you need about half a squad going in there, really.
Either way, Brownie, either Premier League or Championship, the rebuild's going to be massive, and it needs to be.
Do you know, it's fascinating actually watching Gelhardt at Sunderland and how Sunderland fans are reacting to him.
Don't like him, do they?
No, because I absolutely love Joe Gelhardt, and for me, I was banging the drum last year about he's got to play more, he's got to play more, he's got to play more. And then I'm kind of questioning going, did Bielsa have it absolutely perfect in terms of impact appearances, where that's where he wove his magic, was impact appearances rather than being let loose.
I agree with you. I think if you saw Joffe, his good moments were final 20 minutes of games where teams were tired, tended to be against the lower opposition. He had a good performance against Chelsea as well when he came on last season. So yeah, I think Bielsa was right. I still don't think we know exactly where his best position is. I don't think he's a 9. I think he's best shaped playing off of another number 9 of some sort. And I think that was the intention at Sunderland. And then their main man got injured.
Now he's up there, isn't he? At the
Stewart,
top,
isn't it? Yeah. So I think that's what's happened there, and I think that's why they're not seeing the best of him. Like he's definitely a natural poacher. He's good in front of goal. He finds himself in good positions. He's good at using his body and slipping past players. He's not overly quick though. He doesn't get in behind defenders. So I don't see him being an out-and-out number 9. So yeah, it's a tricky one. But again, this is exactly why he's gone out on loan, and he's not ready to be the main man up front for Leeds United.
No, I mean another one out on loan who struggled for a long time, but now is really starting to catch fire is Charlie Cresswell.
I mean, he's coming on Team of the Week this week.
Yeah, he's coming on leaps and bounds, and you can see it on the social media account for Millwall. Kreza and all this kind of talk. I mean, please don't sell him, Leeds. This has been, this is what it's about. You're exactly right. This is what it's about. They're going to have tough times in that division, and from talent, I would totally back Gelhardt to turn it around at Sunderland, like Charlie hopefully has at Millwall.
Look at the progression of Ben White. Ben White's a fantastic example of progressing at the right speed and being put into the right places. You look at the player that we saw, and you'd think that 2 seasons before that he was playing League 2 football. You'd have been like, what? But that's what was needed, and Brighton recognised that. And then when he was ready for Premier League football, he played Premier League football, and then he got his big move to Arsenal. Like, he's a perfect example of it. It's why you can't just rule out a player if he has a bad couple of months in Championship, because the Championship is tough. For Charlie, it's his first ever real taste of consistent men's football after playing under 23s. He had a couple of moments in the first team for us, obviously, but really this is his first season, and he's going right in at Championship level. There's some fantastic centre-backs that never make it out of the Championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, Leeds should follow Chelsea's example when they loaned out James, Mount, Abraham, Mings, Gallagher, like we are doing with our youth players, until they make a name for themselves with consistency. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with that fact. I think, I think it's funny as well, because Leeds fans, I think we have it in his head about homegrown players or young players and the impact. You look at the O'Leary babies and all that kind of stuff. It's all in there, isn't it? That's how we're successful as a club. But I think the brutal reality in the Premier League is, you've got to have that experience. You've got to have that know-how, especially.
There's so few that make it. Look at that batch, and some of the great players that we had then, but look at all the ones that didn't make it as well. There were bag loads of them that came through and disappeared. I remember as having the likes of Andy Keogh and players like that had to drop down the divisions and come back up. And I mean, Chelsea's a bit of a funny example with the kids, isn't it? Because they have, I don't really like their strategy of the way that they do it, because you're right, Michael's right there in that some of them players have then gone on to have, be good first team players, but they have to also put a massive net out. the amount that they send out on loan that never play for Chelsea or never play Premier League football is massive, and we haven't got the resources to do that. So, our pool is much smaller. So, yeah.
No, exactly. No, getting back to the team then and looking ahead, how much does McKennie have to step up now, especially in Adams' absence, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's massive. I think McKennie is absolutely massive. I'm not saying that I'm disappointed by him, but I'm underwhelmed. I'm at the point where I'm glad that we took him on loan and not just smashed out 30 million for him. Because I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I said this to you the other day about McKennie, in that we, in the Juventus side, he was probably able to just express himself and show just his very best abilities more because he had better quality around him. In our team, he's expecting in that centre midfield position to offer way more than what he probably is actually capable of, which is why sometimes at the moment he's probably looking a bit average. But yeah, I think especially with Tyler being out, he's going to have to almost take on that role as a destroyer. I think he can do that as well, by the way, because I think he's quite good in the tackle. I think he's got good stamina. He's back and forward quick. So yeah, he's going to be huge. I'm really intrigued to see what happens in that area of the pitch on Saturday.
Yeah, because he's most likely going to be joined by Mark Roca, who... It's interesting with Roca. I really want to buy into the idea of Mark Roca in the terms of this Spanish player who has got an unbelievable passing range, and he's got all the, you think of the great Spanish midfield, you think Mark Roca could be that, and how he was at his previous club in Spain, and obviously got a big move to Bayern Munich. I've got to admit with Roca, I've not been completely 100% swept away with it at all. I think we've seen moments, and I think some of what he does is underappreciated, like ball progression, etc.
Yeah.
But sometimes I've watched him and I've said, he's not quite taking it by the scruff of the neck. Is that harsh, or do you think?
No, I understand. I understand your thought. I think he in a Jesse Marsh system, I think he was set up to fail because we had no width, and his range of passing would be far more productive if he had the space to find players out wide. So I understood why he would often give the ball away, trying to thread the eye of the needle, if you like. But I think what you're saying is fair. I think he's had moments in games where he's really let himself down, give the ball away sloppily and things like that. So I hear you. I mean, for me, I would probably start with a 3, I think. It's just who that third is. And I would sit Roca in front of the back 4 as the DM. And give him the ball to dictate play, and then have McKennie, maybe Aronson, maybe McKennie, and I don't know. I'm really, really struggling with an argument to start JB or Archie Gray in this game. It's massive. I've seen people say, "No, Archie Gray, generational talent."
And he might well be. He might, part of the
16.
great dynasty. But yeah, he's had a bad injury as well, so he's not played much. It's just absolutely bonkers. I mean, yeah, the one thought that flashed through my head, I hope it doesn't happen, but Robin Koch in DM.
Yeah.
Just so we've seen it, and yes, he didn't, kind of set the world alight. He had a couple of decent games as DM, but it always looked a bit awkward. It looked like, well, that's it. I mean, does Stroik come back in? I think Cooper's going to be back in the squad.
But then you have 2 left-footed centre-backs, and that whole argument starts up again, doesn't it? I hear you. I mean, I'm not totally against having 2 left-footed centre-backs, but I just think it does throw off the balance of the team. And in a Gracia side, which is promoted that we're going to keep the ball and we want to keep possession, I think then you've got a real issue. And I think Koch is probably, him and Verber actually, are our best ball carriers. It's funny because Diego Llorente had lots of criticism, but now that Verber's come in and he's playing there, I actually think that he would be the more suited centre-back alongside Verber. So
I know, because it's almost like with Llorente. I know, do you know that is a frustrating thing, isn't it? I thought it would Click as well. I mean, I'd love to have Click as an option in midfield in terms of just the experience and everything. And obviously, under Marsh ball, it was just 100 million miles an hour. But to be honest, Llorente, that first season he came in, and there's moments, if you watch the Brighton game last season, it's his clever chip ball over to Gellert when everyone
It
were
were
expecting him
class.
to shoot. It were,
The first
had
season,
unbelievable moments, and I think just the kamikaze football from Marsh just did nobody any favors, did it really?
No.
And you do
No.
what that's a great point that you raise as well about this kind of style change into a possession-based style. But you look at our squad of players, and they're very frantic players. Aronson, Harrison. It's kind of they're frenetic, aren't they? And
They've been
are they going to
brought
be
in for that,
capable?
though. They've been brought in for that, though,
Yeah.
Brownie, haven't they?
Yeah.
Bielsa coached the lads that have now been there for the time that they have in a certain way to play a certain way. And then Marsh had something it was same but different, if you know what I mean. Like he was still high energy, everything at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And now we're trying to adjust and change to something that's not that. It's a tough one. I mean, you could even play Verber at centre mid. You play Cooper at centre back and go with Verber in midfield. I think I'd be more confident with Verber in midfield than Coco Stroik, personally. I think he's technically better than either of them on the ball. But yeah, either way, it's going to be a bit of a tricky one.
Yeah, absolutely. Please, if you're watching the video, do put a like on the video. Also, subscribe to the channel for more content. Please get your comments in as well. What do you think going into the Wolves game? How are we going to replace Adams? What should we do? Michael Browne not being sold on Rocker, Aronson or Rasmussen, but not written them off yet because it has taken Rodrigo 2 seasons to show his best form and Firpo after a season to show decent, consistent form. Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with that. And I think actually, I do like Brendan Aronson. I really do like Brendan Aronson. I think there's a really, really good player in there. I think under the right coaching, it could go really well.
This point again, though, is exactly why when we were speaking on Saturday about experienced Premier League players, we've not signed any. Now, I'm all for Michael's kind of ideology around that. It's right, but the fact is that you need some players that come in and hit the ground running, and that is far more likely if you've recruited some, not all, but a couple even experienced Premier League players that know what it's about and can just come in and get on with the job. Especially when a slight drop in form or a slightly underperforming season for us could potentially result in relegation. You need to get that balance right. So yeah, we could handle Rock Aronson and Rasmus not hitting the ground running if we had 2 or 3 that were. And the fact is that we've not had enough of that this season.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Someone else who's sparks up debate in amongst fans is Chris Somerville, and I feel like a bit of a Somerville defender. I just take it really personally when I see
We've had people, different, haven't we?
Yeah, I think. Do you know what it is? I feel like sometimes I'm watching a different game to what people criticise him for, because I know he's getting a lot of stick for how he doesn't help Ayling. And, you can see that, but sometimes I think that's kind of protection for the old guard. It can never be the old guard's fault. A little bit of that, I think, gets in there. I think with Chris Somerville as well, I think he's an easy target because I think the way he comes across sometimes is like, his hands up, and I think all that kind of forms an impression in people's minds a little bit. But for me, I mean, against Chelsea, he was our most dynamic player. People are saying, well, he should be dropped, and Willie Gnonto playing for him. I think yes, Gnonto, there's obviously a strong argument for him playing, but for me, Somerville has been very, very threatening, and that I mean, by no means the worst player for me against Brighton. I mean, where do you stand on Somerville? I mean, is it time for him to be dropped a bit, or is it what do you think? Because I know you're not a member of the fan club like me, are you?
No, I'm not. But that doesn't mean I think he's a bad player. I think he's got a lot to learn. I think he shows his inexperience a lot. I think there's, and that's to be expected. But then are you testing that out during a Premier League season when we're in a lot of trouble? That's kind of where I'm at with it. I think, sometimes he should just lay it back and he tries to take it on. Then when he should try and take it on, he lays it back. It's just his decision making. He also doesn't have a lot in front of him, or he hasn't had a lot in front of him in the way of a potent number 9. So when he's getting his head up sometimes and he's looking for a cross, he's not got anybody in there. So that can sometimes then make him look worse than, look like he's playing more poorly than he actually is. I definitely think he's got a lot to offer. I'm I'm just neither here nor there with him. I think if Sinisterra's fully fit, he starts over him. For me, if you're going to persist with Jack Harrison at left midfield this week and he has to play on the left, I think I would start Nonto over him on the right. But I'm very impartial with him. I think he's definitely got a player in him. I do think he's got a bit of an attitude issue. I do. We've seen that a few times, and we heard it, didn't we, under Bielsa, that he had a bit of an attitude issue. That's where I stand with him.
Well, do you know I'd love to see, Jason? I think this is something that could be exploited by Leeds. Is I'd love to see him and Nonto play closer together because they've combined fantastically well. We know they have a great friendship off the pitch, and the few times when they've been interlinking and running rings round the defence, I think that is something really interesting. But when they're on their opposite, wings, there's not much combination play. But you look at the goal against West Ham, and it was Somerville and Nonto combining for that, and I'd love to see maybe them two get closer. I don't know if you put Nonto as the second striker or something, so he's kind of closer to him, or
I think under Gracia, that would have to be the way that you do it if you're going to have them closer together. Because the reason that we saw that work quite effectively on a few occasions under Marsh is because we were playing so narrow. They actually were playing on the opposite wings, but they were just so narrow that they ended up coming closer together. And I mean, we saw what Jesse Marsh was trying to do in some of their moments, to be fair. I hear you. I am not against Nonto starting up front. I am actually saying we should do that. I actually think it'd work. So if we do that and then Somerville starts on the right, I'm okay with that. Starting Nonto alongside Rodrigo if he's fit, or Pat, whoever, that'd be the way that I probably started, because I think Nonto will do the pressing when he's instructed to. I think he's probably the most natural finisher, maybe with the exception of Rodrigo. We've seen some of his goals this season. They're very naturally taken. He doesn't think about it too much. He strikes the ball cleanly. He's dangerous in and around the box. He's good with the ball at his feet. And for me, centrally, that's where that actually becomes more dangerous. So I'm all for Nonto starting up front. I don't think he will go with that, if I'm honest, but I'd be all for it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. It'd be an exciting little experiment. So it is Wolves next, then Jason at the weekend Saturday kickoff at 3:00, another 3 p.m. kickoff for Leeds. And Wolves, interesting team. I mean, we've got a game in hand on them. We're 4 points behind. We've only won once away from home, so we're very poor away from home, and you know what we're like. As soon as we go a goal behind, we crumble, and we just can't pull it. We don't turn it around ever when we go a goal down. We've got Adams, one of our main men, out, but I mean, what do you think going into that? I mean, what kind of threat do you think Wolves are going to pose for us, and how do you see that one going?
Well, like I said, I'm surprised to see Wolves in the position that they're in. I think they've actually got a really good side.
Yeah.
A lot of this team is still the team that were finishing top 10 in the Premier League a couple of seasons ago. They've only scored, I think it's 20 goals this season. I think they're one of the lowest scorers in the division. Yeah. Raul Jimenez has never really been the player that he was before his injury. Hwang Yi-chan isn't a potent striker. They're trying to find goals from other areas, but they miss so many chances. They're a bit like us. They miss so many chances. I just think, if we're not going to win this game, what games are we going to win to stay up? That's where I'm at. And I mean, we seem to be going into every week and saying this is a must win, and then we don't win, and then it's the next one's a must win.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a must win. Like, where else are we going to start picking up enough points to stay up if we don't win this game? And we bring them right back into it. They'd be a point in front of us, and we'd have a game in hand. I think it's a huge win. We've already beaten them once this season, so we've got hopefully that sort of mental kind of game will help, that the players will know that they can get the better. When you're not winning many games, drawing on any sort of little victory is huge.
Yeah.
So the fact that we've beat them this season already will hopefully play a factor. And I just think we have to go there and we have to win. However it is. I don't care whether it's scrappy, horrible 1-0 win. We need to win the game.
I'm always confident, and then till the game starts and you see you see how the players are performing, you think, oh God, come on.
Well, they're going to be looking at it as an opportunity as well. They're going to be like, we're struggling. We can't get any wins. Leeds United at home with their form, 1 win away from home all season, blah, 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 all the rest of it. They're going to be feeling exactly the same. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. Michael, Leeds have the joint worst away record in the Premier League, and Wolves have scored 20 goals all season. Leeds have only won one at Wolves since 1972, and that was last season. Oh yeah, God, the 3-2, wasn't it, last season? When
is that true? Because I remember going to Wolves in Championship years ago, and I'm sure we won, but maybe we didn't. I can't remember.
God, yeah. Well, it was that crazy game at Molineux last year, wasn't it? Where we were absolutely shocking. And then they got a player sent off, and
Jimenez got sent off.
Yeah, the tide turned, and we managed to do it. I mean, you'd like to think if we do get a win, it's going to be a little bit more straightforward, but it's Leeds United. I mean, I agree with you. I think how many times have we said about must-win games? I mean, it probably started all the way back to the Aston Villa away game a few months ago, where you're like, right, okay, cut the nonsense, we got to go. And we've the only one we've actually managed to win is Southampton. And I think, the players have to step up now. Players really have to get into this. And like you said last week, the individual performances have to be better.
Absolutely. I mean, when you're in the bottom, in the relegation battle and whatnot, you don't need 11 players out of 11 to have 9 and 10 out of 10 games. You need that if you're going to win Premier Leagues and win Champions Leagues. We just need 5 or 6, really, to have a really good game to beat these teams, because they're also struggling as well. They're down there for a reason as well. So, yeah, we just need enough of them to turn up and really grab the game by the scruff of the neck and take us over the line and win this game. I do see positives out of Grassi's time here. We've still conceded 4 goals or 5 goals, is it, in 4 games, including the Fulham game, which is a little bit of a bit of a misleading stat, because the 2 goals against Fulham were both worldies, 1 corner against Chelsea. When you start breaking it down, it's definitely better than what it was. So I'm confident against a Wolves side that's struggling to score goals anyway, that we should be able to keep them out. Melia needs to have a good game. He needs to have a good performance. We've spoke about him a little bit. I think he has got the potential to be a big part of this next 10, 11 games. You're seeing keepers pulling out some unbelievable saves in this battle down there. And we need a little bit of that from him. We need him to save more than just the ones he should be saving. We need him to save 1 or 2 of them that, on my word, that's a really good save. What I mean?
Well, he's another one, isn't he? He's incredibly young, and he's kind of been thrust into it. And okay, you're the main guy now, and it's been difficult for him as well. We've probably mentioned he's not really progressed that much, certainly in so many aspects of his game for the last couple of years, and it's difficult. It's funny, though, mentioning about players and being in form. I mean, how grateful are we that Junior Firpo's found this run of form and picked up, because that left-back situation was getting a bit hairy, wasn't it, with Struijk before he got injured.
It's like Grassi has spoken to him. I don't know, maybe it's a Spanish connection. I don't know, but it's like he's put a confidence into him that he didn't have before. And I mean, we should all be delighted, whether we thought it was good or not. I mean, I said some really scathing things about Junior Firpo over the last 18 months, because he was, let's not recreate history, he was horrendous. He was one of the worst fullbacks I've ever seen. And I've seen Dan Arden in the Championship. I've seen some terrible fullbacks. Jason Crow, you know what I mean? How far do you want to go back here? But he was that bad. But this last 5 games or whatever it is, he's played really, really well. And he's been one of his best players. He's looked confident. He's been a bit rash in the tackle from time to time, but most of the time it's come off. There was one where he flew in at Solly Marsh, and it didn't half make me laugh, because he proper poleaxed into him, but he timed it perfectly. So, fine. It was a great tackle. So, thankfully he has, because we really needed it. Because without him, I don't know what we'd have done, to be honest, because Struijk's been out, and then he's been in really bad form. He's not left back anyway. Then we'd have had Verbu. We needed at centre-back. Who would we have played at centre-back? So, thankfully he has. He's come good. Hopefully, long may it continues.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just catching up with some of the press conference comments from Gracia today. Just a warning, by the way, he has said, Gracia says Darko, JB and Archie Gray midfielders he'll think about what using while Adams is out. That's just lip service, that, isn't it? I don't expect to see him.
It doesn't give anything away, don't Gracia? He's very coy on the responses. I would imagine that they'll probably be in the squad. They'll probably both be in the squad. I would be stunned if either of them started. And you know, if one of them does start, and you have to say Gracia sees him in training all week. He trusts the mentality of the player. For me, what we've seen of JB especially. You know, I had a debate on Twitter with somebody about him yesterday. In the minutes that I've seen him in the first team, he's been brilliant. Well, hold on a minute. Let's break that down. He had 90 minutes against Wolves away, in which we lost. He had a good first 50, 60 minutes and then totally disappeared from the game. Didn't play particularly well towards the back end of the game. And I think he was actually responsible for the goal in that game.
Yeah.
He then had 60 minutes against Cardiff, in which he was responsible for the first goal, in which we conceded, and we were 2-0 down when he came off, and we ended up drawing 2-2. I'm not hating on him. I'm just hating fact. And then he had 7 minutes against Man City when we were already 3-1 down. So where do people make this stuff up from? Because it doesn't exist. Like, you can watch him in the under-23s and say that he's playing really well at under-23 level, but that does not mean he's ready for Premier League football. It doesn't. So I wish he was. I wish he was the next, whoever. But the facts are, is if he was, he would have been playing so well already this season that he would have forced his way into starting, or at least getting more minutes than that. That's the minutes that he's had for our first team. So to throw him in when we desperately need a win away at Wolves in a game that we really can win, it's just suicide for me. Yeah. And we all hope Archie Gray, turns into everything that his uncle was. But in fact, I mean, again, that's massive heights. He does look like a player. He does, but he's very slight. He's got a lot of building to do to be able to play centre midfield in a Premier League team for me.
Yeah, no, 100%. How important is it to have a good weekend this weekend, considering that it's then the international break? There's nothing worse than having a bad result and going into an international break. Honestly, like when we lost to Spurs before the World Cup, and then you've just basically got a month to think about that result. It's nothing worse than that. And for me, you just can't go into that international break in a worse position. Can't be in a worse position going into that international.
It'll be horrible if we're going in the bottom three, if I'm honest. I think it's massive. I mean, again, it's similar to saying this is a must win. If we don't win, it'll be, then we're on to the next one, and positivity central and all the rest of it. Yeah. I wish I could be positive. I wish I could be really, really positive. And, there is positives to have. But the facts are, is if we don't win this game, our next game's Arsenal away. Yeah. After the World Cup. After the international break, sorry.
Yeah.
So, this is massive. Massive. Because if we win this game, we can afford to lose the Arsenal game, because that's very likely.
Yeah.
So we can afford to then, have the break, let Gracia spend more time with the players, yada, 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 lose to Arsenal, and then go again.
Yeah.
Now, we don't just rule it out. We obviously hope to pick something up, but the facts are it's going to be extremely difficult. So, I think it's massive, Brownie. What do you think?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I just think you can't go into this international break in a worse position. And I think, please, can we make a game in hand count for once? We've had so many times where we've had games in hand on teams and not done anything. We had 2 games in hand on Everton. I think back in January at one point, I said we didn't win any of the games. So you're just falling behind. It's such a good opportunity, to do it. And I think we absolutely cannot go into this international break in a worse position, because I just think, like you say, you're spot on. You got Arsenal at the other side, which is going to be tremendously difficult. That is a really difficult game to come into, and we're running out of games where you look at it and go, that's 3 points for Leeds.
Winnable games.
Yeah, because if you're talking about Leeds have got to get another 4 or 5 wins the rest of the season, you talk about doubling what you've won already. I mean, I know some people said, well, we've got the exact same number of points that we did this time last
It's
season.
not the same.
Doesn't matter. Not the same. It's not the same at all.
No,
Thank goodness there's more teams dragged into it, because obviously it's more of a lottery then, and you've got more chance of potentially getting out of it if other teams are fading. But no, this is more perilous than last season.
There's only more teams because there's not two as crap as last year. That's the only reason that there's more teams involved in it, because there's not Watford or Norwich.
100%.
That's it.
100%. That is it. That is the reason. And you don't want to start getting cut adrift at the bottom. You really don't.
I think that sorry, just to interrupt before you go on. I think the 3 points is massive to then go into the international break and have Crystal Palace, Leicester, and Wolves all really, really close. Because do Palace play again before international break? Because they're a game ahead of us already. So do they play again this weekend?
Arsenal away.
Arsenal away, right? I mean, Palace for me, they are the one to look at, because because they've had a really bad run of games. After this bad run of games, they I think play 7 of the bottom 9.
Yeah,
in the last 10, 11 fixtures or whatever it is. That they are going to be a huge part of the relegation picture of Palace, whether they get dragged into themselves or they beat the teams that are going to eventually go down. We're included in that as well, I believe.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we'll have Palace at home at some point, which, we should have beaten them away, really. We were 1-0 up in that game. Looking elsewhere then at the fixtures, I'm tempted to say it looks pretty good from a fixture point of view this weekend. I mean, you've got Forest versus Newcastle tomorrow. I know Forest are good at home, but hopefully Newcastle are back on it now. Leicester are away at Brentford. Southampton have got Tottenham. Bournemouth are playing Villa away, so they might fancy that one actually. Everton are away against Chelsea. So it could be a very good weekend, or it could be absolutely horrible again.
Everton and Palace winning coming.
But the thing is, not all of those teams are going to lose. Someone's going to get a surprise result.
Yeah.
Someone's going to get a surprise result. It could even be Crystal Palace against Arsenal. You don't know, but someone is going to do something. Leeds have to make sure, for a change, for once, it's them doing it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, mate. We have to now start booking our trend. And the facts are, is if we don't, we're going to end up being proven as one of the worst 3 teams in the division. And right now, that is what we are after 26, 27 games, whatever it is now. That is what we are. We've got less wins than everyone else. But the hope comes from the position of that we've seen enough out of these players to think that we can win enough games to stay up. That's where we all are in it.
I know that, but I'm probably since the Chelsea game, I've kind of struggled more and more with that, because I look at them and just saying we've just not had it from them. We've just not had it, and have we overrated this squad and these players? But you thought the forward line would be enough to power us home, but.
Well, we're saying what we're saying about Palace, and you're absolutely right in that game. First half, probably one of Jesse Marsh's best 45 minutes. We were brilliant first half. Yeah. Patrick Vieira made a subtle change at half-time, totally changed the game. Nothing that we could do. We went through it like a damp squid, like we did against Forest away, and there goes 3 points. Right, just that game and the Southampton away, which again, how we end up not winning that game is ridiculous. So you're looking at 5 points there alone. 1 which then gave 1 to Southampton, which brought them a point further up the table, and 3 which went to Crystal Palace, who now we're talking about being 4 points in front of us. So when you're thinking of just them 2 games alone, but that's why we are where we are.
Yeah.
Because we can't see these games out,
100%. Playing Wolves on Saturday, so when we played Wolves in the league, it was the opening day of this season.
Feels like a long time ago, doesn't it, mate?
God, all the hope, all the optimism. What did you think that day after that opening game? What did you think was going to become a Leeds season after that?
I didn't think it'd be this. I didn't think we were that great that day, truthfully. If I remember rightly, there were moments of we were quite lucky, really. Maybe lucky is a bit of a stretch, but probably a draw would have been a fair result from that game, because they had Sarr come out and punch Christensen in the head, and he should have been a penalty. If you remember that, it flew out in his Superman and punched him in the head. And we scored, obviously two good goals. So But yeah, I thought we'd build on it, and we did. To be fair, the opening month were brilliant. We've won a third of our games in the first 2 weeks of the season or something, wasn't it? 3 weeks of the season. So yeah, I didn't think it'd be this. I thought this season we would probably peter out and finish 13th, 14th. I thought we'd always be flirting with a few bad results, potentially dropping into that battle. I thought we'd finish about 13th or 14th this season, and that had been progression for me, considering what happened last season. Expected us to probably finish 6 or 7 points ahead of the bottom 3, which we still might do. It's unlikely now, but we still might do. But I thought we'd always have had that cushion. I thought we'd have always been looking at the team below us. So.
Yeah, I didn't see this season coming at all like this. I really didn't. And my hope is if we can stay up by hook or by crook and we get the 49ers in and let's just start again. Let's build it up again. Let's change the squad and get going. Because, I mean, everything like that just be, it all goes up in the air, doesn't it?
Grinds to a halt, doesn't it?
Just, it really does affect it all. But fingers crossed, mate, we can do it. Anything else, Jace, you want to get through with Leeds before we go?
Well, how would you go in the midfield at the weekend? I know we're going back a couple of questions. But what would you do if you were Gracia?
If I was Gracia, so you're definitely McKennie Adams. You've got McKennie Adams in there.
McKennie and Rocker.
McKennie and Rocky, sorry. God. McKennie and Rocker. But my only worry is that you haven't got the destroyer in. I'm not totally convinced with McKennie at the moment. I think you're right in terms of he's got defensive attributes, good tackler, energetic. He might be able to replicate some of what Adams does, I think. It's a really tough one. I think he will just go with those two. I think he will just go with those two, and I think it'll be similar. I think the rest of the team will be similar. I think if it's not going well, I think he may even be tempted to push Verber further up and maybe move things around that way potentially. I think actually it's a good shout that you mentioned about Verber in the base of midfield. That could be something.
Would you go pragmatic or would you go at it? Because we've seen that he's open to being varying it up in styles. Because my kind of feeling to it is as if we're pragmatic in this game against a team that's terrible in front of goal, you're kind of asking them to score. So my kind of gut feeling is that we need to win this game. We've probably got more in the final third than they have. Well, we definitely have, I think. We should probably go and try and win the game.
Yeah, I kind of think that I know we lost the game, but against Fulham in the Cup, where we created so many opportunities, we sat a bit deeper and we picked our opportunities to attack.
Yeah.
I would like to see a performance like that, really, where we, pick and choose our moments to go and we exploit the fact that we've got pace and everything. The problem is, though, is just the final third decision making. That's the problem with, because I think, well, if you are a bit passive, if you're pragmatic, you sit back and you pounce, you've got to be able to finish the job.
You've got to take them few moments that come, haven't you? Then
you've got to. You might only get 3 or 4 chances. You've got to put these away. And I just have no faith in this team being able to do that. And then the problem is then where you go, okay, attack, be on the front foot, try and dominate, try and do that. And I worry again about that because I think there's too many, leaky holes in that team. We've seen Ayling getting beat time and time again off the wing. Not entirely convinced that, we don't know what the midfield, how that's going to function, if that's going to offer enough protection at the back. It's a real
I think you're right about the Fulham performance, though. I think you're right about the Fulham performance because we're not going to concede goals like that very often.
No.
Pedro Neto probably has the ability to do that, but apart from that, they don't have Neves as well. But
Neves can bang them in, can't you?
You get what I'm saying. You're not going to concede goals like that every week. You're not. And if we'd have been a little bit more clinical on the day or not gone behind to that goal, we'd have probably ended up going on winning that game and being like, that was a great performance and it was comfortable. So, you're probably right. Pragmatic while still making sure that we are attempting to win the game.
Yeah.
So, Interesting. It's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, and it's kind of similar to what I said before about I have all the faith and optimism, and then after about 10 minutes into the game, and you're like, oh God, these players just can't finish the dinner at all.
They're going to fly out at the Browne Wolves. They are.
Yeah,
they're gonna fly out. They're going to try and get an early goal, get the tails up, and all the rest of it. And
they could be on 30 points. If they beat us, they're on 30 points going into that international break.
They're almost as good as safe.
Yeah. Then you're looking at it and going, that they should be okay. It's like Bournemouth. Though Bournemouth for me are just such a problem. I expected them to be the rubbish team that the caretaker manager, a bit of a yo-yo team. But
they've got wins in them, haven't they?
They've got wins. I mean, the Liverpool game. I mean, Christ Almighty, you're just banging your head against the wall as a Leeds fan.
They've got some good players, though. I mean, defensively, I don't think they're great, but they've got really experienced goalkeeper in the old Barcelona guy, Neto. They've got the likes of Billing in the midfield. Dominic Solanke gets a lot of criticism, but I think he's a good player. To be honest, I think he offers what he offers.
Yeah.
They made some pretty shrewd signings in the winter window as well in January. I forget the lad's name now, but he's pacey, tricky winger that they signed. They've got some good players. Defensively, they're going to struggle, but even their centre back that they signed, Sinasai, experienced European midfielder, European centre back, and they've got some good players. As I said to you a few weeks back, they're the one that would be my tip to kind of pull themselves out. And they've also got the position of no expectation. They go down. Everybody thought, well, Bournemouth were always going to go down. Whereas for Leeds, they don't carry that. No. They carry a completely different expectation. So,
no, absolutely, and I mean, it's just God. Now we've been talking about it for an hour. I'm nervous now. I'm nervous. I did again. I'm just thinking, oh my God, it's once more into it, isn't it?
Go watch the debrief again, mate, and it'll make you feel better. Other Brownie will make you feel better. But he makes some really, really good points. He does make some really, really good points.
I mean, the points per game under Gracia is good, and when you analyse the actual performances and the teams we've been playing, and you take it all into consideration, we are in a healthier position. It's just that thing, isn't it? Because we've only beaten Southampton so far. It just, that's where you're just like,
And I am all for points over performance, but it was the performance that against Brighton that worried me. There were some parts of it that were really good, and I could see what he was setting him up to do. It wasn't that; it was the individual performances that I thought, like, we just didn't deserve anything out of that game. So while we've got something out of the game, great, but because we didn't deserve it and we played so badly, it then leaves me with less confidence going into these games coming up. That's where I got left out of last weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, get your predictions in. What do you think? Wolves versus Leeds. What's going to be the score here? Let's get some score predictions. Jason, I'm going to be awful. Your score prediction, mate?
I don't know.
It's horrible. It's horrible. It is. It's brutal. It is brutal.
I think we're going to win. I think we're going to get the win. And I know that's going against what I'm like sometimes. I'm going to say 2-0. 2-0 Leeds United.
Comfortable or still?
No. 1-0 till about the 93rd minute, counter 2-0. That's how it's going to be. So we're going to have to sweat for it. But I feel a clean sheet in this game. God, I hope I'm right. Come on. I'm going to hit you. What do you think?
I'm tempted to say the usual inconclusive draw, where it's like
we can't keep drawing.
I know. I've just got a horrible feeling it'll be that. I don't want to say I can't see us winning, but I just think that we haven't shown anything that we're going to win. It's away from home. Do you know what I mean? It's away from home. We're terrible in the final third generally. I don't know what. I really hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong, and we can do it.
It's hard to picture wins when you've only won 5 out of 27, isn't it?
Do you know, it's amazing because there's not been any comfortable 2-0 wins, or we beat Chelsea 3-0. That is the only comfortable win. The other wins, it's like such a struggle, so hard to get anything, and it's just bonkers, absolutely bonkers. But yeah, we'll see.
I don't know what to say. I'm going with that. I feel like we've got enough in the tank. They're not in great form either. They don't score a lot of goals. Hopefully, we can just have it click the other way. Hopefully, the loss of Adams ends up somehow being a positive, and we can work into getting a little bit more creativity in the centre of midfield, because I do think it's a problem.
How does him being out give us creativity, or in terms of what are you thinking could happen there? Is it McKennie and Rocker?
I just think Tyler is so limited in what he gives us going forward. Not that it's a criticism; it's just not part of his game. I think that just being forced into having McKennie and Rocker in there will maybe give us a little bit more creativity going forward. McKennie's going to have no choice but to, at times where Tyler would pick up the ball and then just give a little 5-yard pass to Rocker, McKennie hopefully will go and retrieve the ball and look to drive it forward 10, 15, 20 yards and open up different spaces that wouldn't have been there if Tyler had won that. Still think Tyler's going to be better at that job, but you get where I'm coming from. Hopefully, against a lesser side, I don't know. Maybe I'm clutching at straws, but
that's what it's like, isn't it? I know it's shocking, isn't it? It's absolutely shocking. Gaz, thanks very much for your comment, mate. He's going 2-1 Leeds, Harrison, and Nonto. Take that all day long, all day.
Any win, I don't care how it comes, mate. No. It can be a bobble.
Yeah, bobble, anything, deflection,
Melier clearance that goes all the way in. I don't care how it comes.
One of those going. Yeah, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? Just before we wrap up, Jason, because we know that you've covered things at Bradford Park, haven't you? Just what was, because we're not chatting to Lewis Sale on the channel tonight, but what was this crazy situation with the postponed game? I just wanted to get your take on it, mate, because it sounded bonkers.
I mean, you hear all sorts in non-league football, don't you? But obviously I have my connections, so I've spoken to a couple of people down there about it and whatnot, and they literally 2 minutes past 8 comes and the referee makes the decision to call the game off. Should have been a 7:45 kickoff, right? So fans are there, it's not called off in time to stop people arriving at the game. I don't know what they've done with regards to refunding tickets and stuff like that, but it turns out that some of the players were all travelling up from Alfrington separately, and there was some travel issues with the group that had come together that had the kits, the manager. I'm not even joking. The kits, the manager, and some of the first team players. So ready for kickoff was 13 first team players, but no kits. So they offered. They said to the referee, "We're happy to play in Bradford Park Avenue's away kit," because they had their kit, that kit available as well. And the referee wouldn't have it. Called the game off. So, but the fans were all over Twitter going mad that these players. They had 13 first team players that were in the pavilion after the game were called off eating free food, but they wouldn't be able to play the game and all this. But technically, Alfreton should probably forfeit the points. They should. Yeah. Like, joking aside,
God, how much are they needed? Flipping heck, can you imagine
absolutely
that
massive. So for me, like, if you need to call the game off, haven't you had it a couple of weeks ago themselves? They requested to the league to call the game off against Scarborough because they didn't have enough players to fulfill the fixture. The league told them, no, you need to go ahead with the game. Avenue were left with no choice but to draft up 3 under-18s from their academy, which the standard is so drastically different, and sign on Danny Boschel, their assistant manager, as a player to sit on the bench to to complete the game. They ended up getting a massive point out of that game. Alfreton should have to forfeit the points. It's not Avenue's fault that they couldn't get there for the kickoff time.
No, it doesn't seem quite right, does it? That at all. No. Good stuff. Okay, well, that's your Leeds United content. So a bit more hope and optimism.
Come on,
in the channel tonight. We've been here before, though, haven't we?
I believe for the next 48 hours, Brownie. I'll text you 10 minutes in. Oh, that's this shit.
I hate football. I should watch cricket. Yeah, good stuff. Please, if you've been watching the video, if you're watching it recorded later, please give us a like. Also, subscribe to the channel. Myself and Jason, I'm sure we'll be back at some point, won't we, with a review and breaking it all down to
whenever you want, mate.
See where we're at the other side of the Wolves game. But thank you very much for watching. I've been Stephen Browne. Alongside me has been Jayson Booker as well. Michael Browne, excellent stream, guys. Michael, thank you very much for your support, mate. Much appreciated. We'll be back later on. We'll also be chatting Bradford City in probably about 15 or 20 minutes as well on the channel with Width of the Post, Jason McKennie as well. So please keep an eye out for that, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.